Okay, it is 10 o'clock, so I'm going to begin. I'm going to do the first part of our presentation, and then Melissa will take over. I'm Rebecca Boardman. I'm an art teacher at Barnett School, which is over near St. Johnsbury. And I will say that I am very much in favor of kids having physical interaction with materials, and I feel there needs to be a good balance between using technology and having kids get their hands dirty and really get into stuff. And when I do projects with technology, often before the end, I'll have a few kids that will say, when can we do real art again? And they really want to do the real art. So I just want to put that out there, that I think some of the traditional things are very valuable and need to be included. And in fact, when I use technology, a piece of it has traditional art form included, as will this. So Melissa and I have talked for the last 2 or 3 years about doing a unit on the media, on advertising, on the impact of advertising on our lives. And as most of you know, there's never enough time to sit and collaborate on anything in a public school. So I decided in December that I was just going to jump in and start a unit on advertising with my kids. But together with that, I wanted to experiment with a few things that I've been hearing over the years. So, and to see how kids would do. So this is that you can't read, and there is a handout that you can read just a tiny bit better. This is a flowchart that I did with Simple Mind, and I realized after I did it there's way too many words in here, so it's difficult to read. But it was helpful for me to organize what it was I was really trying to do for myself. And the 4 basic questions that I wanted to find out about was, given the opportunity, the software, and the permission to play, will students really delve into the possibilities, or will they just skim the surface? The second question was, will the students be able to come up with ideas for inventions given no parameters? So basically I'm throwing something out and seeing what the kids are going to do with it. Give them information about how products are named. Will students be thoughtful about naming their products? And finally, having explored Google Drawing, will students apply what they've learned and create high-quality graphic design for an advertisement? So why did I choose Google Drawing? And it was chosen because it's a free graphic program. It's right there when you open up your computer. All kids have it available. I wanted to find out, could you really do something worthwhile with a program that's so accessible and free? One of the things that we discovered when we were doing this is you have to go to it through Firefox. At least that was true when I did that. And there are kids in the class who, for some reason or another, are loyal to Safari or Explorer. And it actually took 2 or 3 classes. The kids would open it up. They'd say, I can't get to Google Drawing. And I would fiddle around, and finally I said, are you on Firefox? He says, no, I like Safari better. And I'd say, you gotta go to Firefox. So just a little thing to keep in mind when you're doing this stuff and have to do some troubleshooting. So I've been to a number of workshops where people said, if you give kids the software, let them get on the computer, do something, they'll just take off with it. And I wasn't convinced that that was really true. At one workshop that I went to, the woman said, yes, they will take off with it, but they'll go about this deep when they could be going this deep. And that's kind of what I had been thinking, that they'll enjoy the novelty, they'll play with it, they'll do a few things, but they won't really go as far as I would like to see them go. So I wanted to see, what would my students do? So when they were given Google Drawing, and I said, just go and play, do what you want to do, I want to see what you can come up with, I want you to play with the tools. So most of the kids know how to go find a picture and insert it. So this is what this kid did. He just downloaded a photo he found. This one same thing. Just found a photo, inserted it, that's all he did. Or she, I'm not sure whose all these are. This student did the same thing. He found a race car, put it in there, but another student said, here, you can write your name, so here's another tool. So he thought that was great. He put that in. The next thing he did was write his name again, and that's all he did. He didn't explore any other tools. So then they began to play with stamps. They used them in fun ways. And again, this is just playing with no particular goal in mind. Some kids started incorporating text with their stamps and shapes and stuff. Some kids experimented more with shapes and colors and all that.
And still all in Google Draw.
All in Google Draw. Some experimented with the freeform shapes and the paint tool. Others combined shape tools with drawing and painting tools. Some played with drawing tools and shapes. So this was what they did, just playing. And I thought, well, this isn't too bad.
I just wanted to say, so sometimes as teachers we have to like, well, what's the learning that's going on? And really it's almost a skill building time. They're learning how to use that particular tool. Like anytime you start exposing to students to a new tool, they do need time to play around with it. And then from there, you can start deepening their learning experience.
Right. So as probably most of us could predict, some students really worked at finding different tools and doing a number of things. Some just did what was easiest, what they knew how to do, and didn't really explore much. When we got done doing this, we projected each student or group, sometimes it was pairs or small groups of students, projected what they'd done, explained to the other students what tools they used and how they did what they did on that. So they shared their knowledge with each other. Oh, and this was I forgot. This is one of the best ones. So they used a whole number of things. This was a group of 3 students that got into it more than any other group. So the next part of the project was for students to invent some kind of a product that they were then going to design an advertisement for. And they did this with pencil and paper. They did a drawing of their invention. And when I did this assignment, there were some things that I wasn't aware of that I'm now aware of. And that is the difference between West Coast mentality and East Coast mentality when it comes to invention, innovation, pursuing new ideas, and creating new services. And some of you may have heard the series on VPR on the origins of Silicon Valley. And there's and the references at the end of this, it shows you where to go to if you want to see this or read about this series. But they talked about how there were a number of engineers and inventors, people, and I'm not explaining this all that well, except that these people wanted to do some really new things. And they broke away from the company that they were working with and wanted to find investors to help them pursue some new ideas. And nobody would invest in their businesses because these guys weren't businessmen. They were inventors and engineers and people like that. And it was the East Coast people tended to be the money people, and they would not hear of this new idea, this new way of pursuing new ideas and new businesses. So that seemed really interesting to me. At the same time, I have a son who lives in the San Francisco area, and we went to visit him in February, and he had a party, and I met several of his friends, and one after the other told about startup projects that they had. One of them is working on a photojournal magazine that I referred to in the references that you can check out if you would like, and it's a magazine called Once, and it's like the old Life magazine. It's a small, it's just a fairly short photo story about somebody or something somewhere in the world. Gorgeous photographs, sometimes their voices, sometimes their timelines, and I think it's quite beautiful. And I also thought the possibilities for it, I'm sidetracking a little bit, but the possibilities for it were wonderful for writing starters for students to become more aware of the world and that kind of thing. But anyway, the point is that this is a startup from somebody who's in their 20s. There's a free pilot issue available. Another guy is interested in starting a timeshare automobile ownership business. And this stemmed out of, have any of you heard of zip cars? You know what zip cars are? So he was thinking, well, zip cars are fine, but if you have to use them a lot, it gets really expensive. So maybe there's a similar kind of thing that you could have timeshare automobiles. So another thing, just adult, that is a friend of my son. But it seems really prevalent in the San Francisco area that this is possible, that you can go out and come up with an idea and pursue it. And so what I wanted to do, I realized, and what I will do more explicitly next time around, is to plant the seed that you can do this. You can come up with an invention, you can come up with a service, and you can take control of your life and how you make a living. And I just think that's kind of a wonderful thing to plant a seed for in kids. Oh, there's another one in there. This is a fun one that I just read in New Yorker magazine about a guy that did an organized international couch surfing, and it's a great article, and it's referred to in the references too. And this guy is from San Francisco. And I should also note, I have a daughter who lives in Burlington. None of her friends talk about those kinds of things. They're doing really wonderful, cool stuff, but that isn't part of the mentality in my experience. Okay. So students were given the choice of whether they wanted to work alone or whether they wanted to work with one or two partners. If they chose to work collaboratively, they could choose which of the product from anybody in the group that they wanted to do. The hand-drawn design for the product had to be inserted somewhere in their Google Draw advertisement. So again, the traditional drawing is included into here. So one of the things we talked about after they came up with the idea for their invention was naming the product. And this is an illustration from a New Yorker magazine article. I have just a few copies of the article. I got permission to hand out copies, but I didn't know how many people were here, so I only got permission for 8 because I didn't want to spend a lot of money. But you can easily find the article. But if a few people want to take it, it's a great article. And it talks about the great lengths that companies go to name a product. And I'm just going to read you a segment. I read portions of this article to the kids. These were 6th grade kids. New Yorker magazine probably isn't typically what you would use with a 6th grade class, but I don't see any reason why you can't use it if you use it in a sensible way. So this is just one paragraph. I read a little bit more from this, but you get the gist from this. So it talks about how companies name products, particularly the BlackBerry. They talk about in here. But Lexicon employs 2 in-house linguists and consults with 77 others around the world, specialists in languages as diverse as Urdu, Tagalog, and Hindi, a critical resource, classic, and I'm not sure pronunciation. They screen names for embarrassing associations. The industry abounds in tales of cross-linguistic gaffes, like crepe coffee creamer from Japan, bum potato chips from Spain, and the Chevy Nova, in Spanish, the No-Go. They also offer input on the unconscious resonance of particular sounds. And when I read this to them, I elaborated and explained what some of this meant. In the mid-90s, Lexicon funded a linguistic study whose results suggested that the sound of the letter B was one of the most reliable in any language. Whether you were in Poland or Paris or New York, Plasek said, he mentioned this to the research and motion executives, and they decided to capitalize on both B's in BlackBerry. But they also, part of the article also talks about when they named the BlackBerry, they had a brainstorming session. They had a bazillion words up on the wall, one of which was blackberry. Somebody said strawberry. They said strawberry was way too slow sounding, and the blackberry was crisp, and it sounded more like something immediate and quick. At any rate, there's a lot of money, thought, and time that goes into naming a product so that it has the maximum impact. So anyway, we talked about that, and the students were pretty interested and asked questions and found the humor in things. But when they came time to name their products, they just kind of named them. So, and that, that was fine. They did still hear the message. But I'm going to show you what the names of the things are. And I want to say that on these slides, I put the names in. This wasn't their doing. So this didn't have anything to do with kids. It's just to show you what they named their products before we go on to see the graphic design of their product. So personal.
Can I just stop? So
Yes,
so what Becky's doing is she's really demonstrating a transition that the students made, if you haven't figured this out, in her art class. So when you were talking earlier about the image, or grabbing images that they were using for their assignment, it was pretty basic and not getting to where she really wanted them to be. And so from here on, I think you're just showing the improvement that the students have made in their artwork.
Right. So and this is just
their
kind of the
advertisement.
progression through this
Right.
unit and how I did this and the kinds of information I presented to the kids and then what they did with it. So we have the personal eyeglass computer, the helper bot, the ProFlex boot, the Beast. Now this was the closest to what I was hoping that they would do, and you'll see more about this in a minute. Zipper's Dream and Boomer's Mouse Killer. And then they did their designs, and I don't have copies of those because I didn't realize I needed to save them. But they were, at the beginning, they were pretty boring. And they used a few of the tools. They kind of inserted their drawing, and I thought, oh dear, this is a little discouraging. So we had another group critique time, and so we showed the advertisements for their products. They talked about their products, and one of the students made the comment that an ad didn't have Shazam, and so from then on, we gave it the Shazam test. If the advertisement didn't have Shazam, then it needed to be revised. So these are the final designs the kids did, and they're kind of from the not all that great to the better and better and better as we go through. So this is the nose saver. This is the personal watering can, the ProFlex boot, and in case you don't know what this is a person who has horses, and if you lose a boot, it's how you can find it. This is a helmet that you put on if you have if you have bad thoughts or you're upset about something. It replaces it with pleasant thoughts, and it can be personalized with your own initials in the center. This is, as you can see, personal computer eyeglasses. It explains everything that it does. Flavored air. This is actually Melissa's. Can I say that?
Yeah, this is fine.
This is Melissa's son who it did, and it looks like planned out, designed invention, and it says, you maybe can't see, but it says pancakes, waffles, eggs, cereal, soup, pie, and it blows the smell and the taste of it in the air, and so it doesn't have any calories, but you can enjoy the...
He's the fast-growing boy, and he's always thinking about food.
They're full course meals.
Right, yeah. Okay, and I hadn't noticed this before. Now this one doesn't have a drawing in it, but what these students did is they took the drawing that they had and they reproduced this through Google Draw, and that was just fine with me. But down here, so this is for a party or something, but down at the bottom, I hadn't seen this before, Moves Like Jagger, which I thought was pretty funny, especially for a 6th grader.
Hey, that's some subtlety. They're advertising.
Yeah.
It's actually in a song.
Oh, yeah,
all
we
right,
know.
so that
oh,
shows
you didn't
how
know.
out
Oh,
of
yes,
that-
that's what I was saying. It's
Okay,
just in a
but
song.
do they know who Jagger is?
Probably not.
Probably
They do
not.
now. Oh, yes.
All right.
They try to move like him.
All right. Zipper's Dream. You might have wondered what this was all about, but it says up in the right-hand corner, we named Boomer and Zipper after Dylan's cats because they are nice cats. So this is an environment for cats on one side and a mouse killer, Boomer's mouse killer, on the other side.
Bonus.
Right, the bonus, yeah. The robot raccoon. And one of the things that the kids found after a little prodding, the background on this, they were able to go in and find a background and put something on top of it. I wasn't sure that you could do layering. So, I mean, the kids were teaching me this as well. So this was a nice thing. Helper bot.
So all their drawings were done by hand and then scanned in? Or
Yeah. Well, they were put in a file and then they went and got them and put them in. And I might do that part differently. Like I said, this is first shot experimenting and seeing what kids would do, and then that'll inform my teaching in the end. So this is the beast, and having the fur at the top was again a nice clever touch. This is the same group that did the final one at the beginning when they were playing around. They're pretty sophisticated. And they chose to go back into their drawing and physically draw the coloring and stuff for this sneaker rather than, they had the option of doing that digitally and they didn't want to do it. And so at the end are some references that you can look at. There are a few missing on this. So that is the end of what I did.
This was 6th graders, you said, right?
6th graders, yeah.
Would you consider ever going younger with this?
Yes, yeah.
Or it sounds like it would be great for, yeah, a lot of different age groups.
I think you could, and I think there would be a different emphasis
Yeah.
depending on the age group.
Yeah.
But it was really fun to see the kids come up with their inventions. And as I said before, I think the whole idea of planting that seed of what you could do in real life.
Vicki, how many students are in that class? 23? 22?
22 students, but I did have them split, so I only had 11 in each
At a
class, something like that.
Okay.
So I will undo this. Oh, let me just put these.
You can go ahead and put anything on mine.
And I do use paper. So
I think what's funny, Becky, about what you said in the beginning is that, well, we did some technology, but we still included real art. And I think that that real art can still be done on the computer. But I think what even though you said the word real, that's something more tangible.
Yeah, and there are drawing programs and things like that, but it really is different than using paint and clay and chalk and those kinds of things. And there are also things where you can, I mean, you all know this, but that you can do on a computer, but you don't really, I don't think you really understand it unless you physically interact with something. then go and do it, further it on the computer, but you have an understanding of what's happening. So one of my things that's a bugaboo for me is that the instant gratification, that you can go on a computer and make it do something for you. I know that you can do Andy Warhol images from photographs. I have a unit that I teach kids, and they do their own Andy Warhol images of themselves, but they don't do it the automatic way. They do it, color it themselves. They choose what sections are going to be colored. They do a set of 4, so they have, anyway, so that's my feeling about things.
Do kids need a Gmail account to download Google Draw?
No, we have, what I use, mostly I use Macs on this. We got a grant last year that got us 5 Mac laptops, and because in this group of kids there were only 10 or 11 in each group, they could share them, and plus we had some other laptops that they could access. So they could just go right into Google Drawing and then share it with me, and it was easy.
So you loaded it onto the computer for them? Or
You don't have to load it on. If you open up a Google, or you go to, it's right there in the documents, and you just go to Create and down to Google Drawing.
Okay.
Okay? So that's the thing, the reason I went to it, was it's right there. It's free, it's right there. You open up the Google Docs, it's right there. They can do it. And so all kids would have access to doing something like that. Okay, sorry.
So my name is Melissa Bushey. I teach in Barnett School with Becky. It's a K-8 school on the other side of the state. There's about 220 students in it. I'm the librarian and the, what you call it, technology integrationist. I integrate technology with the classroom teachers. So what inspired me to come and talk to you today about media literacy was based on a course that I took last summer with Rob Williams and Susie DeBross, I believe I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, through St. Michael's College. If you're interested in media literacy, I strongly encourage you to take the course. And what it did was it opened my eyes to the enormity of media in our culture and the degree that large advertising companies are really impacting our children. And so I felt that I had a responsibility as a teacher in our school to really begin teaching students about the media and help them to become more critical thinkers. In addition, I tried to get Susie to come to a conference such as this one, and she said no, that it was really my role as a teacher to come and pass this information on to other teachers. So in this course, in the media literacy course that I took, I created a unit, I think it's this one, for my class that you're welcome to look at. It goes into great detail. I mean, really it's coursework, and so the objectives are clearly spelled out and the activities and so forth. You're welcome to use that any way you want. The lesson was designed, I think there are 5 different goals, and then of course I have objectives underneath. So it's fairly extensive. And when I wrote this unit, when I designed the unit, it was with the assumption I'd be working with 8th graders. So the content at that time was assuming I was working with a more mature group. This year I was not able to work with the 8th graders. I worked with 6th graders. And so I scaled things back a little bit. I wasn't working with them on a regular basis, and I'm giving this little background information. My classes were kind of sporadic. They seemed to be always, the classes got interrupted by fire drills, concert rehearsals. Then it happened to be the day that I was using the blog and they needed to post, and the internet was down, which doesn't happen. So everything you could think of to go wrong really did, and so everything was condensed. However, I did create a blog for my 6th graders, and what I feel pretty strongly about, and I'm actually pretty comfortable, is that I wanted to create a paperless unit. I don't want to have them using worksheets and passing things out. I also wanted to give them opportunities to work together as groups, to work together as partners, or to work together independently, and I felt I did a decent job with that. So I would I would do some skill building and then break them up into groups. I was working with the whole group. How many boys? I mean, there's probably like 17 boys and 5 girls, so you can just imagine the energy and activity level of this particular group. They did not have a lot of experience working with blogs, so I had to do a lot of discussion about online behavior and respectful posting or communication. We are a Google Apps school, and so presentations and Google Docs, it's all available to us. So before I go in for any further, I just want to clarify some vocabulary words that I used frequently with the students. It's media, medium, and product placement. For me, media is the information. Medium is the way that media is delivered, the form that it's delivered in, such as a TV or a billboard, or for them, iPods. I said radio and then thought, oh, I wonder how often they listen to the radio. So anyways, those are all, it's a form of communication. And then product placement is just a technique that advertisement companies use to advertise their computers. If you have TiVo, I think it's TiVo, I don't know, television, or you can skip past all the commercials. Now advertising companies sneak their ads in into movies and TV shows. It's very subliminal, and I don't think the students are really aware of this. So, as we know, media is everywhere, and I feel like I have a hard time disseminating all that information, and I just can't imagine how their brains and that they're able to do the same thing and make sense of it all and be successful at it. And I don't think they have an awareness of all that media that is coming to them. We live in a world where we're just constantly being bombarded by this information, and there's so much time. There's so much information that there's been discussion about the amount of deep learning that we're doing, or even deep reading that we're doing. We're just skimming everything. In addition to that, I'm sure most of you, I'm assuming that you're aware when you that you have a profile, and then Google has a profile, and when you enter something in the search box, what comes up has a lot to do with what you've been searching in the past. And I don't think students have that awareness. In fact, I don't think they do at all, especially in 6th grade. So, so much of that information comes to us that I just question whether I'm independently making my own decisions, or are they heavily persuaded by the media that's around me. And I can't really attempt to measure that, but I can certainly try to teach my students to be critical thinkers about that information, to start developing an awareness of what's around this. And in addition, that's part of one of the information literacy skills that we're supposed to be addressing anyways. So, so I created this presentation, and I used Google Presentations, Google Forms, Blogger, Creative Commons. It was a great opportunity for me to really teach them about using Creative Commons and copyright-free information. We also, right now, are using flip cameras and Glogster to create an advertisement. So in the very beginning, there was one thing. I did one on paper, and it was something that I passed out. Didn't really have a lot of discussion. I wanted to see where the students were at. It's called, it's just a worksheet that I asked them to identify what they thought were the good and the not so good about advertising, to get an idea of what their knowledge was at that point. And I just want to read a few of these off to you. So, good things about advertising is we're able to watch TV. It's funny. It employs people. That's a pretty good comment. Not so good, that it wastes TV time. It's stressful when things pop up on the computer. It interferes. There's so much commercial or ads on the side that it interferes with what I'm trying to see. It takes up less reading space. I hate it because it is trying to trick you. So there are a couple of students in this group of 22 or 23 that were actually aware that there is some tricking that's going on, and they did associate that with the bad part of advertising. So with this, I could kind of determine that they really weren't aware of just how much persuasiveness is actually going on, and all the subliminal messages that are going on. I say the so good advertise. Oh, you can see cool stuff was good. It tells you about new stuff, They can sell you inexpensive things. It's funny. Okay, so you get, so I did use a paper, and so you get the gist of that. Then what I did is I had students start discussing various mediums. And, whoops, we shut this off. In my blog, that's here. Now the unit goes into more depth than the blog does. But I wanted to get them to start understanding different forms of communication. Where do you think that you've seen advertisements? And so they, of course, generated that list. We, at this point, had a group discussion. They talked amongst themselves as partners, and then they shared that information out. I think in my unit I said, try to find an image on Flickr that would represent that different forms of communication. We could upload that into a presentation. This group, I mean, I really just had a little bit of time, and so we moved quickly through this, but again, we shared what these were. If it was something different, they certainly could have uploaded their image onto this presentation. Once I had them look at different forms of communication, open, make sure they were aware of just kind of get the idea of advertising everywhere, that I went on to discuss some background information. Why is advertising everywhere? Why are we being constantly bombarded? And this was an excellent opportunity, if you were working with a social studies teacher, to look at history and to start, go way back with the mom and pop store, and the relationship that they had with the owner of that mom and pop store, and then what took place when the Industrial Revolution came along and the mass transportation came. How did that change advertisement? So, oh yes.
Along with that, as I said at the beginning, we tried to find time to collaborate and make a whole unit. So we are thinking that in the future we would like to involve social studies, guidance. Yes. We talked about how advertising targets certain people, how women are portrayed, how women were portrayed through history, how men are portrayed, that advertising targets young people, and that kind of thing could be done through guidance. So we would like to extend this unit to involve a whole variety of disciplines getting the message across.
And even kids. Grade levels. If you, and I'll go into this, I can go into if there's time, but looking at self-image, a big issue, and then maybe working that unit out with the 8th graders. In this in this unit with the 6th grade, I really just focused on the image and the idea that advertisement companies are trying to create to get you to persuade them to buy their product. So where is it? That's not there. I highly recommend a film called No Logo. I think it was produced in 2004. It's produced by Media Education Foundation. And the woman who is speaking is Naomi Klein. If you haven't heard her, you can certainly go on YouTube and find short snippets of that film. It falls under fair use, so you can show it to your classroom. And it's just fantastic. And so I went into No Logo, and I I showed certain clips. So I just think I'll give you just an idea right here. I think I've got it started. So as I said earlier, we were talking about the history, and I'm going to try to move them forward to get an idea of where advertising is now. And I started off with this. Did we get beyond the little discussion here? Give it just a few minutes and seconds, and it'll start right up. Oh, and of course I've muted it. Go back here. Oh, it's good now. And it's not. Sorry.
wrote in a logo based on a hunch. In around 1995, I started to notice what I thought was the beginning of a new political movement that would specifically take aim at the growing power of multinational corporations, and in many ways would do an end run around governments and go after corporations directly. We knew something big was going on. I'm talking about in the mid-90s. We knew there were global shifts taking place around free trade, around corporate consolidation, and that these shifts didn't respect national boundaries in any way. And our traditional way of thinking about politics, which was to change politics nationally, weren't working. And yet we didn't have the intellectual tools to even imagine this thing called globalization. And frankly, there was a lot of anger directed at multinationals like Nike, Monsanto, Shell, McDonald's. What I wanted to understand was why. What were the conditions that created the backlash, that in my opinion made the backlash inevitable? And also what liberated this generation of young people to be so bold as to go after multinationals directly? What my research brought me to was...
I'm just going to move her ahead just a little bit. Yeah.
The process of branding in its simplest form is just the process.
That's what I wanted to start at. Sorry. Whoops. I have a sensitive mouth. I apologize for that. This is originally what I wanted you to start at. So just a little snippet of the background. I would show them this video.
The process of branding in its simplest form is just the process of marking a product with a consistent logo, image, mascot that sends a message to the consumer, a message of consistency, a message of quality. This process became really important with the advent of mass industrialization, when goods were being produced in factories, and mass transport. Because what that meant is that all kinds of products that people used to buy from a local shopkeeper or a local farmer who they had a relationship with locally were now coming off of trains, trucks, and out of factories. And this was quite actually scary at the turn of the century, because the relationship of trust that you had with that shopkeeper or with that farmer when it was just spooned out of the barrel or scooped out of the barrel was now subverted by these goods coming from far away.
Okay. I just wanted to give you an idea that this is an excellent film to kind of support this particular lesson. There are lots of other films that are produced by the Media Foundation that you could certainly go into and take a look. St. Mike's has a slew of them at their library that they're willing to loan out. So after, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
A couple things I want to say. In case you haven't made the connection, branding, if you don't know what branding came from,
Oh yeah.
it came from branding cattle. That there's an image that they put on the cattle, you could recognize who it was. That's what it comes from. And to me, it almost feels like you have a brand, and who are you branding? Are you branding the product? Are you branding us? And the reason I say that is because this year particularly, something kind of disturbing to me happened. At the end of the year, the 8th graders create a letter along the lines of an illuminated letter where they take one of their initials and use symbols that represent themselves, who they are, what they're interested in, what they hope to become. And this year, several of the initials that were created were virtually all logos. They were, and I would say, some things as simple. What foods do you like? What sports do you like? And they wanted to go online, get that symbol, get the Nike swish, get the Under Armour is a big one now. And to me, if you're seeing yourself represented by commercial logos, maybe there's a problem here. And so another thing that came out of this is that I'm thinking that down the line, another unit I would teach was kids designing logos about themselves, that they have a symbol that's them, that isn't the monster thing, or that whatever else is out there. But
And with
that
that
was
symbol would come an idea behind it, like
right.
Apple
That
has
might
their
have
idea,
a
let's be
slogan or
different.
something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the prevalence of logos is unbelievable to me.
And the loyalty to them.
And the loyalty to a company. I mean, how many of us wear sweatshirts, T-shirts that have a company logo on it, and you pay for that T-shirt to advertise for that company?
Go ahead.
I just want to say I work with adult students who are very much developmentally teenagers. We have a local tattoo business in town, and they give free logo tattoos. So we have
The
a
literal
variety of my
branding.
students
Wow. Oh my
literally
gosh.
have the TNT tattoo, the business tattooed on them, and they love
For
it.
the rest of their
It's a free
lives.
tattoo. So
So who's
Amazing.
and then you have to ask yourself who is shaping them? Are they actually making those decisions, or is it just what's around them that's shaping who
well,
they are?
you know,
It's
one
really,
sees one with the tattoo,
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
they
they all
want
wanna
to go
be-
get it too.
yes.
It's just
it's
wow.
pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
from the history, then I would go into, this was something that I didn't do, it was just something that was part of the unit, is showing examples of how Coca-Cola image or advertisements have changed through time. It's pretty fascinating. This would be a good question for Shannon. Looking at images and Google Images, you really can look at those images over time. I'm not sure what images are copyrighted when we're looking at 1910 and 1920, 1930. I know there's some changes.
1923, you're okay.
You're okay, but then from so I can do like 1920, but then from 1920 on, they do become copyrighted, and so then you would try to find an image through Flickr, which isn't too difficult to do.
But this is where the Code of Best Practice speaks to it, because it's part of media literacy education, so I think you're covered by
You're
fair
okay.
use.
Okay.
I mean, it really is taking information and helping kids make sense and make meaning from it, so I think it falls squarely in fair use.
Plus,
Okay.
they're not using it publicly, right?
They could
No.
be using it publicly. You could be putting together your unit of media examples and selling it. So
Okay.
you can put together your unit and sell it commercially as long as it's part of media education. Code of Best
The-
Practice.
Thank
and,
you.
And a lot over history, and one of the things that struck me a couple years ago was to look at the image for Columbia Pictures when you go to the movies, and there's the woman that stands with the. If you look at the original way back, she was quite a voluptuous woman standing there. If you then see a movie next time by Columbia Pictures, she practically looks anorexic. And I remember that when I saw the first, the most recent one, I was like, oh my gosh, it was just shocking to me. Yeah.
So students can go ahead and upload their image into this presentation. As you see, I only had one from the, I think it was the early 1900s, because I wasn't sure what the cutoff was, but thanks for clarifying that. And from there, then I start moving on to techniques. So if you, oops, I must have closed it. I just want to get this. I just want to make those of you familiar with a site called Acme. And if I just put in this, then it comes up at the top, which is the Acme Coalition. This is something that Rob Williams is a part of. I looked at the website. I'm not sure if it's current, but it certainly has all kinds of fantastic free teaching resources that I have used before, that you are free to use as well.
This is a handout.
That is a handout. This one, it talks about questioning media, 10 basic principles of media literacy education. That is found on this site, but I did make some photocopies of that if you're interested in it. This is where you can get advertising techniques. For older students, there are lessons about, the Super Bowl advertisements and beer advertisements. So it's just a wealth of information, and then you can branch off to other websites. So I used a lot of tools from here, resources from here. So at this point, after we went now we've done our history, we're kind of moving forward. We have an idea that no longer are ads just saying, oh, that's the cleanest flower, or that is the best tasting soft drink. The students are now getting an idea that advertising companies are using ideas to sell their product, and that they're trying to connect with you emotionally using an image. And if you wanted to get into science, you could talk about the limbic brain and how that taps into your limbic brain. And we did it a little bit, but I know it anyway, so we did a little bit. So here are the advertising techniques, and I showed them samples. We discussed the advertisement techniques. They had access to this, and then we went through some sample advertisements. So you only see two. This is where my learning experience. You only see two images, and those are both off Flickr or Creative Commons. And I had some YouTube videos that I had embedded on that particular day. And when you, how many familiar with embedding video? When you embed a video, usually you just see the video and it plays, and then when it's done, maybe you'll see another image, but not usually, it's just the image itself. So those students that are familiar with YouTube know if you click right over here, then it takes you into YouTube. Well, so I just like started this lesson. I said, go take a look at these advertisements. We did a couple together, and then I asked them to look through them and then choose a advertising technique that you think matches with the ad. And so I had some students, whew, they were off in YouTube. And so I realized I did not provide enough education and some direction about how to use that. And then I decided in the future, either I show the YouTube videos from my own laptop, or I could use YouTube Downloader and just download the YouTube video, and then I don't have all the other stuff that may appear on the video when I'm finished. So I think I knew that and forgot it, and then they quickly reminded me. So then they used the techniques, and at this point, we're at 10:49, so I think my watch is a little fast. At this point, we went into creating an advertisement. We talked a lot about the idea, and we talked a lot about advertising companies and what the idea was, and that was being sold by the company. We saw Coke ads, and we've seen Nike ads to really help them start to realize the message that's being sent to them. Then we talked about the advertising techniques. I think there was an opportunity in the unit to do, for students to rate the effectiveness of an ad and use Google Forms. I didn't get to that. At this point right now, with the class that I'm working with, they all have the access to a flip camera or a camera, and then, or they can use Glogster. I mean, there are all kinds of tools that they could use to create an ad, but they are required to demonstrate their understanding of a technique and incorporate at least one technique into that ad. They're also needing to tell me what idea that they're using to sell that ad. Not this is the longest lasting battery, and use those words. It goes a little bit in. It kind of connects a lot with what Becky was doing for naming a product. That it's not just about the words, it's more of an idea. And it's a little bit of a challenge for them, but that's where we're at right now. I got very excited yesterday. I ran into a friend of mine who was a tech integration in another school, and I told her that I was doing this project this morning. She goes, I'm doing the same thing. I'm teaching media literacy too, except I'm doing it on food and how ads persuade us to buy certain things. And so I was like, that's so exciting. So I just want to let you know, you can go the food avenue. You could go the self-image avenue. You could go to the political avenue. I mean, I didn't even get into that, but that's definitely an avenue you could go into and talk about the 6 major companies and the control that they have, and the control that politics has over the advertising company for those students that are at that level. There's just so many avenues you could go to. I just have time to pick out one. Anyways, with this woman that I met, saw yesterday, her name is Jen. So what we decided to do is that we would Skype each other. She's at a point where her kids are creating a project about food, and I'm at a point where my students are creating something, and then we're going to come together in the end and kind of share that, and maybe
The students are gonna
the students,
share.
yes,
Yeah.
from her school and the students from my school are going to share that, and maybe look at the different techniques that we each have used, and that just happened as of yesterday. So we could do it through Skype, you could do it through email, there are all kinds of ways to do it. Use our blog or our Google site. So, yeah, I'm trying to think if there's, I feel like I'm missing something I really wanted to say.
What you're looking at, another thing that we were thinking of doing is having kids do skits in any subject that we would videotape, and then have them redo those skits using product placement. And we thought the kids would really get a bang out of doing a serious show to show how in movies, and they would be doing themselves, so that they would do the same serious skit about whatever history, some point in history, and have them pick up a Coke or pick up a Apple computer, so the logo's very visible, and that would really drive home how it happens in movies.
One thing
Did you have something to say?
I was just going to say, I've done this with younger kids, 1st through 3rd grade in a multi-level class, and what we did, because they had some severe disabilities, and so the way we did it was with, I videotaped them and we had talked a lot about, and it was for mostly toys that they chose, and talking about where they would place the toy in their video to sell it, would they hold it, how they would talk, and it was really sweet to see, and the parents really enjoyed watching them trying to sell this
Oh, that's neat, yeah.
product, and they had to rename something, so.
So the naming again, yeah.
There is something else, is a deconstructing advertisement worksheet. Oh, that's what it is right here, that we did not do because of time, so I kind of jumped into it. This is paper. I cannot find this online. I've had just a struggle. I know if I contacted Rob or Susie, they'd find it for me. It's called Club Media. It's an advertising activity, deconstructing advertisements. It talks about what form is the advertisement, where do you see it, what is the product. So it's really beginning to help them break down and analyze the ad that they're looking at. What is the main message? Because these are all questions that they will need to ask about their own ad that they're creating. One last, go ahead.
Walsh Publishing Company out of Maine, they have a series of media books that you can purchase that have like a whole slew of activities in them.
Walsh is W-A-L-C-H?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One video that I didn't show the students, it's called Girls Intelligence Agency. You can type that in, video, and it's a 60-minute. It was on 60 Minutes a few years ago. And it talks about how an advertising company, to help sell their products, recruits these girls, usually from higher income communities, and they have this slumber party. And they bring all these, I don't want to call them toys, accessories. And the kids can dive into the accessories and choose a feathery headband or a pink headband or an orange, but they're looking at what students like, what the girls like, and then they buy it for them, and based upon what the girl's opinion is, they then go and sell that in the stores. So it's pretty sad. It's for market research, and
What was this called?
it's called Girls Intelligence Agency. It's a 60-minute clip. I have a link here. There's a link to it. If you go to this URL, it's my unit, and it's in goal 4. So, but it's Girls Intelligence. Whoops, I didn't spell that right. Intelligence. Let's see, I'm trying to think if it's going to come up. Say a slumber party in a box. So it's just something else to look at. That could certainly send the message home as well. Do you have any other questions? Or anybody else? Go ahead.
I just wanted to share something I've done with a group of 8th graders too.
Thank you.
I mean, I've done the advertising and all that, but we also make commercials where they have to come up with a product and pitch for it, and they have to do a 30-second video commercial of a product. And
so you've done it. How did it go?
great, kids love it. What I do is I have them their product has to solve a problem that they have daily at school. And so they go through the whole process of coming up with a name similar to what she did. They have to make a mock example of the product, and I was going to suggest too, like even getting into having them do packaging.
Yes.
Because packaging
Oh,
is
it's
very
huge,
provocative
yes.
and well thought out. And then they have to come up with a pitch. You know how a lot of commercials, they have a slogan or a saying or a pitch for it. And how are they gonna show it and sell it? Use humor or and then they have to have an ad, like a quick ad at the end with contact information. But it's a great collaborative opportunity to get 3 or 4 kids working together.
It is, and I love,
It's
and
a
they
lot of
love
fun.
filming,
Yeah.
but they're learning something with the filming. Yes, go ahead.
I do a similar unit like this. We do a quiz where I give the jingles and they have to guess the company names.
Oh, yes.
And that's really interesting. And then
Yes.
instead of using Google Draw, I have 8th graders, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and I do Google SketchUp,
Yes.
where they get 3D and they can actually get the moving parts and really, I mean, and then advertising, I have them make a 3D logo for themselves,
that'd
a
be
personal
fun, yeah.
company logo.
So it's just really exciting to hear
Yeah.
that some people are already doing some of that and really
Yeah.
beginning to expose their students to it. One last thing I did with the students is, here's just the word. So again, that transition we're talking about. So what kind of emotion do they feel when they just look at the word? And then what kind of emotion is it when they see the image? And a dog is one. We start off with dog, but then we went down to water. And then, of course, I mean, here, that was a tsunami. And here's a child jumping in. So we're looking at how the image really connects to your emotion, and then being able to see the difference between the two so that they can use that possibly in their technique, as a technique when they're creating something. So it's image. Okay, thank you very much for coming.